it so we can get on with our training on the wonderful labs that we have to go through. So hold on, everybody. Let's see what we got here. Got to pull a name out. All right, I'm probably going to brutalize it, but it is Jay DeCaceres.
Yeah, that's Dr. Jay DeCaceres. Yay! All right, Jay.
Awesome. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Jennifer. Awesome job there. And Jay, great job on building your business in the month of July. Awesome things happening for you in August for you and your team as well. So thanks, Jennifer, and thank you very much, Jay. Okay, with that being said, the anticipated moment for very exciting carrier screening, testing, training, the moment has arrived. By the way, tonight is going to be the final open mic of these trainings. So this is opened up to our whole Medicus family. So starting next week, these calls will primarily be focused for our founding members. We wanted to open this up to everyone tonight so you all could see the power of what our carrier screening, testing, trainings are looking like. And this is just the beginning. And to lead our training tonight, I'm very, very proud to introduce a fellow New Yorker, Mr. Harold Schatz. He is the president of Nationwide Medical Group, and he's going to take us through some really, really exciting training. Get your pens and your papers out. Take some notes. We also will have this link sent out to you very shortly after the webinar so you can re-listen to the recording. So, Mr. Harold Schatz, we look forward to hearing from you tonight. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it, and welcome everybody. I would like to thank everyone for joining us. We are so very pleased to have this chance to share with you this very exciting program that represents an enormous opportunity. We are talking about next-generation sequencing, which is the epitome of DNA testing, which enables a medical protocol of prediction and prevention. As this graph depicts, the market is enormous, and as awareness of this technology and what it represents grows, so too will the market. Next-generation sequencing allows single test analysis of multiple genes, providing greater depth of coverage, facilitating superior accuracy of report with much quicker turnaround. This particular presentation will elucidate the carrier screening test that provides prospective parents with the information necessary for them to know if they are at a higher risk than the general population of their child being born with a devastating disease. Think about this. Why me? How did this happen? Can you imagine how many times the parent or grandparent of a child with cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, Tay-Sachs, and other diseases like this ask themselves that question? Think how you feel when your child or grandchild has a fever or is in pain. Now, multiply that by 1,000,000. Now think about this. These and 59 other horrific diseases are caused by recessive genes that can be identified pre-conception. That means they are preventable. Here we see a graphic that lists about 15 heartbreaking, life-altering diseases that we can prevent. Just take a second. Cystic fibrosis, Tay-Sachs, spinal muscular atrophy, sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia primarily affects the African American community, and 1 in 10 are carriers. Look at this picture. This is the day in the life of how children with cystic fibrosis spend their time. Of particular note is that the mother, you can see the mom here, the mother, and you can see in the mirror the father who's taking the pictures, no signs of the disease. These children were born this way through a recessive gene. The public and many doctors are first learning, but the scientists already know. Carrier screening for inherited genetic conditions is an important component of preconception and prenatal care. The purpose of the carrier screening is to identify couples at risk for passing on genetic conditions to their offspring. This slide is a carry forward of the previous slide. These diseases are so devastating that not only is the bar to medical necessity so low, the basis for recommendation is generational. Look at the last line. One Jewish grandparent is sufficient to offer the testing. Hereditary disease carrier testing. Hereditary disease carrier testing is population-based. That means it's not just for certain people. It's for all people, 18 to 45 years old, the reproductive ages. With 4 million people being born every year, 4 million people are turning 18 every year. The market will never deplete. The adjudication rate for these tests is in the 85 to 90% range. And not only do most tests provide peace of mind, one too far, the results of the test are valuable. More about this later. Here's Aetna, letter number B circled. This is their medical necessity. Couples who are planning a pregnancy. Couples who are planning a pregnancy. Rather simple. Understanding hereditary diseases. A brief overview. Dominant versus recessive. We inherit traits. We inherit traits from both of our parents. Some traits are from dominant genes and some traits are from recessive genes. Almost every disease on our panel is passed on from a recessive gene. We get our genes come from both parents. In the case of dominant genes, the parent generally shows symptoms. A trait that is not expressed when there is another competing trait is called a recessive trait. Recessive, requiring 2 copies of the mutated gene to express the trait or disease. That means that both parents have to be carrying the same mutated gene in order to produce a child with one of these horrific diseases. Inheriting a disease that is dominant, a person only needs to get a mutated gene from one of their parents. And since the gene is dominant, if the parent has a mutation, that parent will generally show symptoms. In the case of a recessive gene, to inherit a disease or trait, that is recessive, one needs to get the genes from both parents. Since the gene is recessive, it is possible and often probable that parents have one copy of the recessive gene for disease but do not display any symptoms. If one has a single copy of a mutation for a recessive trait, they are called a carrier for the disease. If both parents are carriers of the mutation for the same disease, they each have one copy of the mutation, they themselves will not be sick, just like we saw in that terrible picture. However, any time you have children, the children will be at high risk of getting that disease. Here is a depiction of how two carriers of the same mutated recessive gene will affect their children. Both of the parents, it's called autosomal recessive, they both have the same mutated gene, and together, in producing 4 children, 1 affected, 2 would be carriers, and 1 would be unaffected. Once again, we reiterate hereditary carrier screening is population-based. Everyone 18 to 40 who plans on having a child, whether it's the first or not, should be screened, and for good reason. At least 1 in 4 people are carriers for a genetic disease. Recessive diseases only occur when both parents pass the mutation to a child, and families can carry a copy of a mutation for generations without anyone ever showing a symptom. Think about that just for a moment. No symptoms. Grandparents, great-grandparents, sister, brother, uncle, etc. No clue. But then 2 people meet, they mate, they have a child, and without any warning whatsoever, they have a child. That is a terrible situation for life. What do you do if you test positive and are a carrier? If both partners are carriers of the same mutated gene, they will have to make an informed choice. If one partner is a carrier, it is highly recommended that the second partner get tested. Remember, it takes both. You have to test the second partner. The second partner, if they test negative, well, then you have the same risk as the general population of having a healthy child or a sick child. If both partners are carriers, in the first place, 85% of the tests come back negative. In at least one partner, which is providing peace of mind, knowing that you and your partner have the same chance as the general population of having a normal child. If both partners test positive, preconception, well, you can conceive naturally. To me, that would be sort of playing a little Russian roulette. You can choose in vitro fertilization, testing the embryo for genetic diseases before it's implanted, using a sperm or egg donor who is not adoption, choose not to have children. Post-conception, there's prenatal testing. Even when something is great, it's still not perfect. Excellent, but not perfect. So therefore, even if a person tests negative, there's a greatly reduced chance, but still a chance, that they are a carrier. Here's why the adjudication rate is so high. Just look at the costs that are involved here. Cystic fibrosis, equal to roughly $3 million in a lifetime of direct costs, and that doesn't even include the other costs, renovations to accommodate the medical equipment, lost wages incurred by the family, etc., etc., etc. And this is a medication that was approved in 2014, which is helpful, and it's not too terribly expensive. It's only $3,000 a year. I would prefer to think the adjudication rate is high because the insurance companies are so humanitarian. That's what I'd like to think. For us, competition is healthy because we are better. Your market is the PCPs, the primary care physicians. They're crucial for both female and male patients. And it says much less taught by competitors, but I don't really think we should care. OBGYNs, natural fit. And it's not only for women, because although, of course, that's a woman's doctor, but if the woman tests positive, the OBGYN can test her partner and be compensated for it for the office visit. We are better. The ratio of mutations, this is interesting. The ratio of mutations tested to the diseases identified is what makes our test have less than a 1/10 of 1% false positive or false negative. We test for 2,500 plus mutations to identify only 62 diseases, affect the highest amount of population. Other people will test for 400 mutations and identify 100 or 125 diseases. Their false positive negatives are not nearly as good as ours. We are very, very, very focused. And our test is done not by blood, but by a non-invasive mouthwash rinse. A couple of key selling messages. We'll get into these in greater depth. They're not really selling messages, they're more understanding the value of what we're presenting. 80% of all recessive diseases occur in families with no known family history. So it's pretty smart to get tested. Insurances cover carrier testing for all people of reproductive age, 18 to 45, since it is much more effective to prevent these diseases. In populations where carrier testing is prevalent, the incidence of disease dropped by as much as 90%. Our carrier screening test is a simple mouthwash rinse indicated for all patients wanting to have children either now or in the future. 1 in 4 people are carriers of an inherited genetic disease. 80% of all recessive diseases occur in families with no known history. And again, the test screens for more than 60 hereditary diseases with 2,500 mutations, bringing forth superior results. Now I realize we just said this, but we're saying it again because I think it's extremely important that we realize exactly what we're addressing and the value that we're bringing. Again, most insurances cover testing for people, or all people of reproductive age. And in population testing is prevalent, incidence of disease has dropped by as much as percent. Benefits to doctors. Looking at them. Expansive panel for the same time, effort it takes to get screened. No guess. They don't have to figure out which panel to get. They're not going to just choose cystic fibrosis. Our screening is going to screen for 62 different diseases. And we have MDs, PhDs on staff to answer any questions the doctor might have about the results and communicating with the patients. But I think of a little more. I think about liabilities like patient retention. Mary goes to her OBGYN and gets the carrier test. The test comes back negative. She's got the peace of mind. She talks to her friend Joan. She says, I just went to OBGYN. I swished my mouth out with some soap, 20, 30 seconds. Of course, the medical assistant helped me. They put it in a test tube. I got back my results, and thank God I have a bill of health, and I'm not carrying a recessive gene. I don't have to worry any more than anybody else about a sick child. It says, my GYN didn't offer me that. And much more than that liability, what happens if one of the patients has a horribly sick child? We know the test is available, and they didn't offer it. All day long, when I watch these attorneys, personal injury attorneys, dreaming up why somebody should sue for something. This is serious, serious stuff. We spoke before about the value of the results. Before I go into this slide, I must state, emphasize, and underscore that International Medical Research is an independent organization that is in no way affiliated with Gene ID. That fact must be clearly understood by everyone on this phone. I will repeat it. I must emphasize and underscore that International Medical Research is an independent organization and is no way affiliated with Gene ID. That fact must be clearly understood. This company started by John Oxendine. It was started in 1988. John is former insurance commissioner for the state of Georgia and is a healthcare attorney in trade. Supporting this program is a letter of legal opinion from an independent law firm that says that this is within compliance with the federal anti-kickback statutes and falls within the safe harbor exemption. What will happen here is that every time a doctor goes on, we can't do this for the doctor, but we can make them aware of it. Doctor goes on and registers. Takes about 10, 15 minutes to do that. After that, every time the results back from one of these DNA tests, they complete an online survey. For completing that online survey, because the data is great value, they will be compensated by IMR, International Medical Research, $100 per completed survey. Now, a little arithmetic. If a doctor were to complete 5 surveys in a day, and there's 20 days, working month, well, that's comes out to be $10,000 per month or $120,000 per year. Now, we all know that doctors are just getting killed financially. This is just another reason for the doctor to use our service, and a good one. The best reason to use our service is that we're the best out there, in providing the results of the tests in the quickest amount of time with the greatest accuracy for their patients. But everybody works for money. That's why we go to work. Benefits to the patient? Well, we already discussed the real value. The ability to prevent being the parent or even grandparent of a terribly sick child. Why would I say grandparent? Because someone 53, 54, 55, they're over that 45 age, they're not within the parameter of what the insurance companies call childbearing age, but they have kids. And the kids could be 25, 20, 30, certainly in the sweet spot. And they can tell and should tell their child to take the test. I know I would, for sure. I don't want to be the grandparent of a child with one of those kind of diseases. Here's another reason why we're better. A highly trained patient advocacy team. This team works with the patient to alleviate any copay or deductible scenarios in every, that's all in capital letters, case. The result is patient satisfaction, and the patient is never hassled, never harassed, never turned over for collection. It always results in patient satisfaction. But wait, there's more. I sound like one of those guys on a, info, but wait, there's more. Qualified and skilled MAs, medical assistants, an accomplished and skilled medical assistant, highly trained. We don't just pick somebody off the street. These are people who've had at least a year of medical training, and they are available to be put in the doctor's office. They are employees of the laboratory. No cost to the doctor. Will explain the test to the patient, collect the samples, and complete the paperwork, to where basically all that is required is the doctor's signature. The result, more tests, accurate paperwork, which is really important to the adjudication, and much greater efficiency. And there's even more. Another reason, highly trained insurance coordination. These people spend their day, all day, on the telephone, working closely with representatives of the specific insurance company for each test sample submitted. This team assures that each performed will be insurance paid. Now, I want to elucidate on that just a bit. Each test performed will be insurance paid. It doesn't mean each test submitted will be insurance paid. Sometimes a test is submitted, and with this particular screening, the adjudication rate is by 85, 90%, but there is 1 out of 10 or 1.5 out of 10 that doesn't get done, will not adjudicate. That test isn't done. Doing these tests are expensive. So it's very important to everybody that we know the test will adjudicate, which translates into a very good situation for you guys. Of course, the adjudication rate goes up. These people hold hands with the insurance people. They get to know them. The insurance people get to know them. It's a very close relationship that works extremely well. The next 2 slides, this is a new account setup form, and there's going to be a slide as a supply request. We'll have to have a for these forms as well as a few others, although you won't be completing the others, doctors will, and in most cases we're going to have A's, so You're not even going to really be training anyone to do it. But like anything with any product, you should know everything about the product. And so it's very smart to learn what the patient completes all the way through the line. And to onboard a doctor does not take a signature. However, although no signature is required, each time a doctor's office is onboarded, they are contacted and thanked, because we don't want anybody, not saying that anybody on this phone would, going through the yellow pages and signing up doctor's offices. There are checks and balances. It's very, very simple. When we go into it, you're going to see that it's rather simple. It's online fillable, and then it's emailed in, and in a very short period of time, a couple of weeks perhaps, or CRM, which is effective, will allow this to be submitted online as well instead of being emailed. But when it's emailed, it's put in the repository of the CRM, and when that's how everything is tracked. And it's by this area, which is, you can't read it, it's awfully small, calls for the doctor's name, and in here one calls for the doctor's NPI number, and that's the way everything is tracked, by the doctor's NPI number. As I said, we will have trainings on these forms, and this is a supply request form. It's really rather simple. It's always going to be wash, rinse, and molecular genetics. We also offer toxicology, which is really pretty good, and we'll get into all of these things as we move forward. Tonight we're only talking about this particular test, the genetic carrier screen test on the bottom left-hand side. This is what the test kit looks like. This is what it looks like when it says biohazard. It's not really a biohazard, and the bags today don't say biohazard. They just say sample bag or laboratory bag. And there's the bottleoscope and a little, you can't see it, but there's a little test tube looking, plastic test tube, sanitary test tube thing with a space for the patient's name on it, and just a little tissue type piece of paper. And it also has a pocket on the other side where the paperwork goes, and when it's sealed, the paperwork is sealed in. The entire thing is sealed, and the doctor is given, as part of their supplies, UPS pre-addressed labeled bags that go back to Spectrum Diagnostics labs. And a good thing about doing this mouthwash rinse, well, let me just scroll down here. Scope wasn't chosen randomly. It just wasn't randomly selected as the mouth rinse of choice. It was tested, independently tested. And you can see the results here. And underlined here is 12 to 60 of DNA per donor. Really, the necessary amount is somewhere around 5 to 8, and we're getting 12 to 60 because of the scope, which has alcohol in it. And because of the scope was tested, unlike blood, which is not very stable, scope is found to be stable for at least 2 weeks. It doesn't take any special handling. The sample, once it's swished around in the patient's mouth, we'll see that in a moment, and it winds up in a cup and then into the test tube. It can be kept at room temperature. There doesn't have to be centrifuged. It's not put on ice. Doesn't have to be picked up in 2 days. And it collects probably 95% of the DNA just through a simple mouthwash rinse. Easy on the patient, very effective. Now we talk a little bit about selling. Everybody, every salesperson, I think I've been a salesperson all my life. What I think the perfect product, if it existed, would be something that sells itself, makes me a lot of money, and makes clients very happy. I think this is about as close as you can get to that kind of a scenario. So whether or not you know the doctor or you have a relationship, get the doctor's approval to make carrier screening for all patients planning to have children or expand their families standard in the office. Make it like blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever. Just another test, because it is population-based. Everybody who's between 18 and 45 should be tested. DNA is like your fingerprint. Unlike your fingerprint, we can both have the same DNA. But your DNA is yours all your life. It'll never change. So one test is all that's required for this particular test or any DNA test to determine if, in fact, you are at risk. Have the receptionist give the questionnaire, we'll see the questionnaire in a minute, to each patient who comes into the office that fits the demographic, 18 to 45. Provide the receptionist with talking points. The doctor would like each patient to answer these questions and bring this form into the exam room for the nurse. Now, if there's an MA at the doctor, if we're going to put an MA at the doctor's office, and the only requirement for an MA to be at the doctor's office is that the doctors, and there can be the office, there could be 3 doctors in the office. The doctor's office must produce 50 tests a month. So 50 tests a month comes out to 2 to 3 tests a day. That's not very ambitious. Certainly can be done. But if not, and we're depending upon the office staff, this is kind of the way to go. Each nurse, nurse practitioner, medical assistant, etc., is trained on what to do and say when the patient hands them the questionnaire and qualifies. And you can read in the quotes just like I can. It looks like you plan on having children, more children, whatever, at some point. Have you ever had a test done to see if you're a carrier for a genetic disease? Well, what is that? Well, this is an important test recommended for women and men of reproductive age in order to prevent diseases such as cystic fibrosis, and important information to know and have in your file. It's a simple test done with a mouth rinse, covered by most insurance, that we would like to do right now while you are here. Here's another option. And again, everybody on this phone, I would think, is experienced in sales. So we all kind of have our own style and our own way of presentation. We found this to be very effective. And I would like you to please remember a couple of things here. Carrier cell sheet, we're going to see that in a minute. IMR process sheet, we're going to see that in a minute. Mouthwash instruction sheet, we're going to see that in a minute. So walking in, say, while you're showing the carrier cell sheet, we want to make sure none of your patients have a baby with any of these terrible diseases. The carrier cell sheet, which you'll see in a second, shows that. And say, again, an international medical research organization compensates doctors $100 each time they complete a survey while you're showing them the IMR process sheet, which shows that a doctor can do 5 tests a day, can earn $120,000 a year, and etc. like that. And then the mouthwash instruction sheet saying this test is absolutely simple. Try not to walk away leaving a card or leaving behind. This is just too darn important You need to see the office manager or the doctor to get them started. All they need to do is agree. We will submit the samples to them, send the samples, they will receive the samples. That's all part of those 2 forms we looked at, and they'll be prepared to start testing their patients. This is, to me, as close to you can get as to what we described. A product that sells itself, can make you a lot of money, and can make your clients very happy. Now, we talked about the carrier cell sheet, the IMR process sheet, and the mouthwash instructions. This is what we call the carrier cell sheet. And you can see in here in the top, it identifies at least 9: cystic fibrosis, Bloom syndrome, familial dysthymia, sickle cell disease, spinal muscular atrophy, Tay-Sachs, Fanconi, Gaucher, etc. Why is carrier screening important? Well, this is kind of important for the patient to understand and for the patient to review with the medical assistant, whoever is showing the patient and speaking to the patient about the importance of the test. But this top part right here is what you're showing to the person at the front desk, or hopefully the office manager or the doctor, to get them signed up. This is, we saw it before, but this is the IMR sheet that you're going to be speaking to while you're showing this, compensating the doctor for completing surveys online. And down here, which is hard to see, it's in on white, but it talks about potential earnings that go up to $240,000 a year. I mean, if you have a 5-doctor office, which is certainly not crazy today, and each doctor would have produced 3 or 4 tests a day, and you're talking about 20 tests a day, you're talking about $500,000 a year coming into that facility. That keeps that facility in business. It keeps them doing what they were trained to do, what they went to do. It keeps them running their own practice. The simplicity of the test. Now, what could be simpler than this? Sample collection. A bottle of scope, we talked about Y-scope. The person swishes it around in their mouth for 20 to 30 seconds. I can't think of a better word than spit. So spits it into the cup. It's poured into the test tube, all handled by an MA or a nurse practitioner or a nurse, or whoever's medical professional is helping the patient. And then it's placed in the bag along with the other stuff. But the important thing is the simplicity. What could be easier than this? I mean, I take blood tests. Everybody on this phone is taking a blood test. I mean, it doesn't scare me. I can't say I look forward to it. I go to the dentist and get my teeth filled sometimes too. Doesn't scare me. I don't look forward to that either. This is simplicity. This is the patient questionnaire for the carrier screening. If you look at the top line, here's the medical necessity. Do you plan on having children or additional children at some point in your lifetime? If you check yes, good. The odds are 90% you're going to qualify or adjudicate for insurance payment. Are you currently pregnant? Yes. Okay. You're going to qualify. You go skip down to number 5. Are either you, your partner, if applicable, or any family members known carriers of any inherited disease? Examples include, and it talks about, you check one of these boxes. If one of those boxes are checked by the patient, and they reinforce it with the yes again, this is a no-brainer. This is an absolute adjudication. And number 6, are either you, your partner, if applicable, or any family members known or suspected to have had any inherited disease. So one is a carrier, and the other was they actually got the disease from the recessive genes of their parents. They became sick. Check one of these boxes, another no-brainer. That's an adjudicated test. That is the presentation. I want to thank you. This presentation, I mean, you can read it. It was designed to make you aware of the value and the necessity of DNA testing for the patient, the value proposition to the doctor, the features that make us the best, the value proposition for you. Our entire package is a compelling presentation that equates to an enormous financial opportunity for all of us. Now, you can't see me, and I can't see you, but you can hear my voice. I am so passionate about this program. I personally volunteered for 3 years in a hospital in a town called Livingston, New Jersey. It was St. Barnabas Hospital. And I volunteered 3 mornings a week, and I volunteered in pediatric oncology. And one of the diseases was sickle cell anemia. And if I was going to stay on this phone and tell you that it didn't tear my heart out, I would just be lying. I kind of dealt with it in my own way. I thought about if I was driving on some back road somewhere and I crashed into a tree and I flew through the windshield and I was laying out there and my face was cut to ribbons and another car stopped and the people came over. I wouldn't want them to look at me and scream and run away. I would want them to help me. And that's kind of how I coped with what I did. But the point that I was driving at was that one disease was pediatric leukemia, which is not a recessive gene hereditary type of disease. That particular disease, if they catch it very, very early, they got pretty well beat. The kid goes through a rough year, and I watched them go through a rough year, but they survived. But sickle cell anemia is a recessive gene hereditary disease. And in every case, all these little children, I watched them, and they didn't make it. And I just think to myself, today, those children, that could have been prevented. I guess it's better not to be born if you're going to be born like that. And the collateral effect on the families, the parents, the grandparents, the brothers, the sisters, the uncles, etc., was unreal. At any rate, I'm sorry, I don't mean to become overly emotional here. I want to thank you again. I hope everybody got some value out of the presentation, and it's an enormous opportunity for all of us. James, thank you for allowing me, and folks, thanks you for being on the call.
Wow, Harold, I don't even know what to say. I'm usually never at a loss for words, but I mean that was just phenomenal. Not only did you educate us and help us to see the power of this test, but the last 3 minutes, you almost got tears in my eyes. I could hear you got choked up. This is a really emotional thing that we've got on our hands, because we've got the power to actually help people, bring a good cause to humanity, and to perhaps not have the situation that Harold described so emotionally. It kind of stirred emotion in all of us, right? Thinking about these babies with these terrible diseases, and then think about the suffering that goes on for the children themselves, but also for the families. And we've got a way to help people not to go through those things. That is priceless. You can't put a price tag on that. But to see logically how this presentation went and how much this is needed and how easy it is to be able to get out there and sell the idea of carrier screening testing to primary care physicians and OBGYNs and just see the effectiveness of it. It all came together for me, but Harold, you tied it up so perfectly tonight with just the emotion involved. Yes, we can make lots of money. Yes, the doctor can make lots of money. But I think more importantly, as we know, and you've heard me say this, money is not the cause, money is the result. And we are absolutely doing the best thing that we can do for people by helping them to take this test. And by the way, this is just one test. This is just the beginning. So again, money is not the cause, it's the result. We're going to help millions of people in the United States with this. We're going to build fortunes for our affiliates, for our families here. We're going to do good things for doctors, good things for patients, good things for ourselves. It's a win-win product. It's a win-win situation for all of us. And by the way, we are the vanguard of this. So if you're with us tonight and you are a founder, the training will continue. We're going to be uploading a lot of documents here, a lot of the information into Medicus University, so you'll be able to refer back to it. Harold will be back with his team, and we'll be taking it to the next level of training, moving into the other tests, but getting into more on the selling aspect of it and the recording. We'll have this recorded as well. I have never seen in all my years of direct selling something so powerful. We've got the opportunity of a lifetime in our hands, and it's time now that we seize that and we really make it rain with this amazing carrier screening testing product. So Harold, thank you so much for taking time out. I'm getting text messages and Skypes as we're talking. People are excited. They understand it. They see it. We're going to take it to the next level, and we're going to make carrier screening testing through Medicus a household ritual to every single mother and potential mother and father that want to have a healthy child and steer away from the tragedy of these horrific diseases. So guys, we'll be getting, we got some claps there going on by Anthony. Right on, Anthony. I'm right with you. We're going to be able to get more information loaded up into Medicus University. The training will continue, but we are equipping you to go out there and build a beast of a business and change the world as we know it when it comes to carrier screen testing. So we know some of you are chomping at the bit, and we now have the starter pistol has just went off. So thanks Diane for the clapping there too. Right on. Folks, remember this Saturday I will be in New York City, in Harlem, New York, actually doing a Super Saturday meeting and training with Brenda Fogel and her group. Starts at noon. It's going to go from noon to 4. It's going to be a packed house. I will incorporate some of this into that training as well. So we thank Harold and his team. We thank you for being here. Thank you, Jennifer Chamberlain. Congratulations to Jay DeCesar. Have a great rest of your Thursday night. Also, one other thing, the 5-minute sizzle call that we recorded is going to be re-emailed out on the Adobe Connect link, but also on a YouTube link, so you'll be able to share it with your prospects on a YouTube link very simply on your iPhones, your smartphones, or your tablets as well. So we're working diligently to provide the tools and the training and equip you to be highly successful direct market sellers, and we appreciate you so very, very much. Thanks for a great Thursday. We'll see you Saturday in New York City. Thanks again, Harold. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everyone. Enjoy the evening. Bye for now.